She remembered that later on when they had reached the Lancaster house. They did not enter it together. Brian rang the front doorbell. She herself had gone around and in by the kitchen, fully aware that the servants would be more talkative than the family. It was still only a crime to her, bad as it was. But on emerging from the service wing into the side hall, she had seen her husband and Margaret together for a second near the foot of the front stairs. The Talbots were there also, but she had seen Margaret slip a note into Brian's hand, and he had slid it into his pocket. She was fishing in her handbag while she was telling me this, and I do not even now know how or when she had got it from him later on. She passed it to me, and I must say my flesh crept when I read it. It was in Margaret's clear strong hand. Please burn all letters at once, and destroy what I gave you this afternoon. M. Just how she got possession of that note I do not know, nor did she say. He had no idea that she knew he had it, and certainly she got it. But after that, I imagine, all hell must have broken loose in the house when she read it. To her, then, and since, it had meant only one thing, that Margaret and Brian Dalton had killed Mrs. Lancaster as a preliminary to a flight together, and that the crime was the result of a plot long concocted and carefully carried out. For she had never found the overalls. That night, Thursday, she had searched for them, and for any letters from Margaret. He had discovered what she was doing and had tried to stop her, but she was like a crazy woman. There was no sign that he had burned anything in any of the fireplaces, or in the furnace either. But of course that idiot Daniels had had his usual fire in no man's land, and during that 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon after the murder he could easily have walked out and dropped something there. Nobody would have been likely to notice. Or maybe he did it at night. She did not know. That was the story Laura Dalton told me the Tuesday afternoon after our 2 murders, stripping away for once the hypocrisies and traditional reticences of the Crescent and revealing a naked and suffering soul. She had done it with a certain amount of dignity at that, save for 1 or 2 outbursts, stretching and pulling at her gloves, keeping her voice down, and even, heaven help us, once settling her skirt so that it hung at the correct length about her ankles. All I could do was to make her promise that she would not go to the police for a day or so at least, and at last she drew on her gloves, straightened her hat, and went away with that odd self-possession which seems to characterize all the older women of the Crescent. Time takes its toll of them, death and tragedy come inevitably, but they face the world with quiet faces and unbroken dignity. I even heard her thanking Annie as she let her out the front door. Chapter 29. I had another visitor that afternoon, Helen Wellington looking, I thought, rather edgy, but determinedly cheerful. She came in, demanding Herbert Dean, and seemed to think I might have him somewhere in a closet. I thought he'd be here, she said. He seems to spend a lot of time hanging about this place. Either he's fallen for you or he suspects you, you never can tell with him. Love or business, he's equally secretive about both. She inspected me carefully, including my rising color. I hope it's love, of course, she went on. I'd just as soon see you out of my way, Lou. Every time Jim and I have a fuss he spends hours secretly convinced that I'm the big mistake and lamenting that he missed out with you. Don't be so foolish, Helen. Oh, I'm not foolish. After he has been noble and taken me back I spend hours too, telling him how interesting I make life and how you would have bored him. But it's a fixed idea. However, don't bother about that. I want to wash my hands, and after that I want to choke Bertie Dean with them. Do you know that I've spent the afternoon in the public library? Believe it or not. She did not explain at once. From the bathroom she kept up a running fire of talk, my own injury, the bombshell she had thrown the night before if anyone is going to abuse Jim I'll do it myself and George Talbot's detention. They've been all around the mulberry bush, was her comment, and I dare say they'll be back to us now. I haven't a doubt myself but that your mother did it. They've suspected everybody else. It was characteristic of her to return from the bathroom carrying both a bottle of hand lotion and a towel, and that she immediately spilled the one on the carpet and mopped it up with the other. But it is also characteristic that just then Annie came up with an enormous bunch of expensive roses which Helen had brought in with her. Don't thank me, she said. They're simply an expression of relief. Failing with my little poker last night, I now hope that Bertie Dean may carry you off out of sheer anxiety for your safety. Lou, why do you suppose he sent me to the library today? I'll give you 3 guesses, and don't guess a book. He knows me better than that.